An email came in about a book that is called The Secrets of Successful Communication. Now, I didn't immediately go, oh, wow, let me check that out. But I do at least look through them and find out what they're all about before I, say, well, I don't know if that's going to work, or, geez, I wish I could, but I don't have time. But this one intrigued me, and I just happen to have time. Let me read to you part of the information that was sent to me. Barely a day goes by when we don't hear about how someone somewhere said the wrong thing at the wrong time. Whoa, got my interest right there. Gee, I've never done that, have you? Smart people, educated people, and even people with lots of experience make mistakes when they're talking to others and have encounters in business or in personal life. And the consequences of those mistakes have an incredibly significant impact on our careers and every other part of our lives. Businesses spend millions and millions every year trying to bring in new customers, define their images, promote their brands, and improve their legacies in customers' minds. And all that money spent is of little value unless people in front of the customers know how to connect with them and know how to handle themselves in an everyday encounter. You see it all the time when you're a consumer, whether you go into the coffee shop or whether you go into the convenience store or whether you go into the superbox store. What kind of encounter do you have with those people? They're your friends and neighbors. They live here in Marshfield as well. Well, a fellow by the name of Kevin McCarney, and I will introduce you to him as a Los Angeles-based entrepreneur and restaurant chain owner, studied people's responses and reactions in hundreds of thousands of different situations and watched as the consequences of those reactions played out. He spent years of seeking to understand why people react the way they do and developed a simple theory to explain what he discovered. And I will welcome to our show here this morning Mr. Kevin McCarney. Good morning.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you? Thank you for that wonderful introduction.
I am intrigued by that because people who have listened to this show have heard me say many times it's almost like I would call it sociology, or watching people fascinates me, interact with one another, and how we, how would I say, come away, what different people come away with as they watch the same situation I watched. And your book is about your brain, the key to happiness and success, with your little brain always close by, your big brain. Big brain, little brain is at the top of the book. It's called Big Brain versus Little Brain Communication. That's something that Kevin came up with. Explain that to me. Give me a synopsis of your book, if you would.
Sure. The big brain, kind of the thinking part of the brain, is the one that's going to always, in any situation, it's going to say the smart, the diplomatic, that positive statement. No matter what kind of situation they're in, they're going to kind of read the situation and come out and say the right thing at the right time in front of the right people. And the little brain I put right next to our mouths, that is going to spit out the wrong comment at the wrong time. It's that impulsive, overreacting, that sarcastic comment that comes out, that one-liner joke that we think is funny, but it really doesn't resonate as funny to others. And it's the thing that gets us in trouble. It's the thing that when we're in business or even in our personal lives, where we almost immediately say, I shouldn't have said that. And we start thinking about, oh my gosh, I wish I could replay that moment but in the meantime, the comment's been made.
You have inadvertently described me. Because
well, they say write what you know, so I think I've described myself too.
Because in this position that I'm in, there's two things. One, we try to be comical or humorous. That can get us into trouble because you don't always know who you're talking to. And the other thing in this business is you have to have something to say. I'm like everyone else. Like, I'm stumbling right now. I have to have something to say. I have to come up with. My brain doesn't work any faster or any better than anyone else's. It's just a matter of training it.
Yes, and I think that's where what I try to do in the book, and I've not only been in business, for 27 years now. We've had our own business, but I also have two daughters, and I've watched and I've been involved with every school activity possible. And I've really looked at the way people react to things. And, the thing that I find most in business, you described the coffee shop and the different places around town. It's a perfect scenario where you're going to see big brain and little brain in action, because no matter what kind of marketing that company's done, the person in front of the customer, the waitress coming up to the table, the clerk behind the counter, is really representing the entire company. And so if they have a difficult customer or a difficult moment and they don't know how to handle it, everybody else in that store is looking at watching what you're doing. I've got a small story about, actually happened in one of my restaurants where two ladies walked in. Lady was, one lady ordered enchiladas, the other a salad. They sat down. 5 minutes later, a lady comes up with the enchiladas, slams them onto the counter, and says, "These enchiladas are cold," as loud as she possibly can. Everybody in the restaurant turns around and looks, and the managers, all the eyes are on him, and how he responds is going to say a world about our company. So the manager, he'd just been through this training. He said, "I'm really sorry. I'll get you some new ones right away." And he does. He brings them out. She gets new enchiladas. 5 minutes more pass. She comes back up, slams them on the counter. "You made these enchiladas cold," louder than she was the first time. Oh, my gosh. The manager is thinking I should just give her her money back, but he says, "You know what? I personally will make you some enchiladas. I'll bring them out to you. They'll be great." He does. She doesn't touch them for 10 or 15 minutes. She doesn't touch the food. And he gets over to the table and he says, "Listen, let me get you something else. Anything on the menu, and it's on me." She looks at him kind of perplexed. She says, "Well, fine, give me some taquito things." Gives them to her. 10 minutes later, he's noticed he's barely touched them. He wants to get over to say something. He doesn't. He feels a hand on his arm, and it's the lady. And she looks at him, and she says, "Thank you." Now, at this point, the manager just doesn't know what is going on. He hasn't figured it out. And most of the people in the restaurant haven't. And she says, "Thank you for not getting angry at me." She says, "I haven't slept in days. I just came from the hospital. My husband's not doing well. I didn't mean to take it out on you." And the manager just melted. He said, "I'm really sorry." And they traded some nice comments back and forth, and she left. And two people came up to the manager right away from the customers that were there and said, "The way you handled that lady made all of us feel comfortable." And that was really special. He says, "You've got customers for life." And so the lesson to that story is not only is when somebody is overreacting about some enchiladas, it is probably not the enchiladas. It's if they're overreacting, it's probably about something else going on in their life. And that's kind of one of the tenets of the book is that we tell people when somebody is overreacting, don't follow them into that overreaction. They're getting they're more primal at that point. They're more little brain at that point than they are reasonable. So you don't want to challenge them. You don't want to fight them. So the manager handled it really well. We got customers for life, and I think that the real moral of the story is that we don't know what's going on in people's lives. We only know how to handle them in the moment. The best thing we can do is pretend like that we'll do everything we can to make that customer happy.
I would imagine. By the way, I'm talking with, if you're just tuning in, I'm talking with Kevin McCarney. He has a book called The Secrets of Successful Communication, and you heard him also talk about his big brain versus little brain theory, if you will, or way of teaching. I can only imagine that you are very sought after on the sales circuit, because what you've just described is what, as a salesperson, I have been taught, is that you just don't know what you've walked into. If you walk in on a cold call, especially with someone, even if it's been set up as an appointment, you don't know what happened to that person that day. They may not be ready to talk to you today, but it's on the appointment calendar, and so, all right, let's go. And consequently, you're not really going to get anywhere at any given time. But if you can put it into perspective, and it sounds like what you're saying in that particular scenario that you set up was think about someone but yourself.
Great point. And, that's the idea. The idea is to really recognize what's influencing the other people. And in sales, you know this well. What's influencing the other people in the room? What mood are they in when they're in front of you? And because you just have to adjust the way you respond to their mood. And it doesn't mean that we don't have the right to be upset ourselves. We do, but it doesn't do us any good. If somebody's using the wrong tone of voice, and that happens quite often when people are using their little brains, is they'll start, using the wrong tone of voice, and you may hear just like, well, that's not what you said. Well, that's what I heard. Well, that's not what I meant. And they escalate their tones up, and they all of a sudden they find themselves in I call it a tone escalation war instead of a conversation. And I think that what happens lots of times is we get sucked into it, into somebody else's idea of and somebody else's mood, and that's really important, especially in the business world, and quite honestly, especially as a dad and a parent. It's a good idea not to get sucked into their mood. Recognize it, and then respond appropriately.
As a spouse, that's what I was thinking. I mean, miscommunication is the biggest problem that I have, in that either I'm not portraying the way I'm thinking. There's that moment, and you described this. I'm talking with Kevin McCarney, The Secrets of Successful Communication. I think this is important because a lot of people miss this, especially today. We'll get into the electronic communication here later on. That's a whole nother ballgame that I have a problem with. But when I'm talking with someone, I'm thinking off, like I'm hacking with my machete down this path, and they're already thinking down this path, and you are just starting to talk over one another, and before you realize it, it's apples oranges conversation here, and there's a lot of frustration involved.
Yeah, and this is one of the lessons I learned. So it was taught to me, I should say, by my daughters, and I realized, and one of the things we do sometimes is we kind of, we're not really listening to the other person, and we're really just waiting for an opening to sort of continue what we want to say.
Exactly.
And when we're not in the moment like that, there's a section in the book that's called "Whose moment is it anyway?" And I try to repeat that to myself before I'm going into an encounter. Is whose moment is this anyway? If I'm going to a party or if I'm going to a function, whose function is this, and who are we honoring or who are we saying something about? And try to keep it focused on them rather than me, because I'm definitely guilty of probably trying to keep the conversation around me in the past. And I've gotten better at really trying to keep the conversation around the other person, because I find it more engaging, and I think the other people feel like, oh, wow, I've been listened to, and that really makes a difference.
I find that you try to actually see the other person's point of view. Engaging a person in conversation, as you know, if you're a conversationalist, you ask them questions, draw them out. And then you will see whether or not they're A, willing to talk, or B, whether they are talkers, in the sense that, talking about yourself is the easiest thing to do. But you also have to think like they think. Why are they like they are? As you pointed out, the scenario of the person who had a bad day.
Yeah.
It could be just that simple, or it could be that they're just not nice people, or it could, but you're making those assumptions and those determinations instantaneously, and sometimes that's not fair either.
Yeah, that's and then another really good point. I think that what we need to do is, and one of the things we discuss is that if we just hold back in the moment and really engage that person and really truly listen to their conversation, and don't engage in conversation stealing, which is when somebody is in the middle of a story, and it could be with 3 or 4 people, and all of a sudden they say something that reminds you of something in your life, and you go, oh, you know what, that happened to me, and then and you tell your story, and all of a sudden this person who was in the middle of the story, you just cut them off, and now all of a sudden you're telling your story because something they said sort of triggered something in your head, and now all of a sudden their conversation has been lost, and they may be polite and not say anything, but they'll think about it, and the legacy of that conversation will be that you didn't let them finish their story.
So, boy, what you just described happens to me, and I see happening, and I don't know if I'm a part of it, but I do realize it 40 times a day. Yeah, we're in that society today where instantaneous, we want answers now. People come up to the office door, and they're tapping their toe saying, I have a question. Well, how did we communicate before we had the instantaneous? We're a microwave society, I call it, where we want everything right now. I can't continue with my project in the office until I get the answer that I need from you, so I want this answer right now. And so they're kind of just waiting for that. There's multitasking is not really. I want it right now. What's the answer? It's like, wait a minute, I'm not dropping everything I do. Then I've lost my place on what I'm doing, and I wind up at the end of the day going, all I've done is answer questions, and I haven't actually accomplished anything on the list that I started out with at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I don't look at my emails in the morning, and I won't do it, because it'll start my day with what somebody else wants rather than what I want. And I've learned that lesson over a long period of time, but it is an instantaneous society where everybody wants that. Oh, you've got to answer me now, or you've sort of so well there that their life can't continue unless they have their answer from you. I really recommend people taking a lot more time when it comes to communication. That multitasking and communication aren't necessarily good friends.
I have to point this out to the listener, though, is that what I'm talking about in the situation I'm describing, which person are you in that situation? Are you the one who's, and I catch myself doing that from time to time. I drop what I'm doing, go find an answer from someone, and won't stop until I can't continue until something, I get this answer from somebody, and we just perpetuate that kind of. You talked about interrupting conversations, hijacking with a story. Also, you talked about looking in someone's eyes, and you can see that they're just waiting until they can tell you what they have on their mind, rather than listening to what it is that you're saying. And now, are you doing that too? How many times have you caught yourself just waiting for an opportunity to get into what you're going to say, and how much have you really taken away from what the other person just said?
Well, and that just comes with a little bit of a focus and awareness, and I think that's one of the key points that we look at is awareness. It's just trying to, in every conversation, in every encounter, think about what you want out of that encounter, what you want that person to think about you, the next day or an hour later, is think about what the legacy of that encounter is going to be. And, if you go in and you're mean and you're angry or you're just upset, and people are going to walk away and thinking they're going to label you with the way you acted. And I think that that's an important component, especially in the business world. But, as you point out, I've been married for 23 years, and I learned very early on in my marriage that just winning the argument doesn't really get you anything, And so I really studied this to where now I try to win the moment. I let other people win the argument. But I try to win the moment by listening to them, and so that when they walk away, they're thinking, well, at least he heard what I had to say. And that it means so much to people. And even if I let them win the rather unimportant argument in the moment, in the minute, I try to win the moment. When I walk away, they're thinking, I feel good about this guy because he listened to me.
When somebody gives you a compliment as you're a good listener, you almost feel like, that's code for I'm a doormat. I'm sitting here listening to you. When do I get to, vent? Where's my time in the sun or the light or whatever here, so that somebody can listen and understand me? Sometimes we feel like that when we don't. You're a good listener, really? I really wasn't all that interested, but thanks. I'm talking with Kevin McCarney. His book is called The Secrets of Successful Communication. And as I said to start the show, I find myself in this book right up to my neck. I see so many things here that I do miscommunication. One of my biggest problems is in email. I seem to have the propensity to, if you'll excuse my language, piss people off without intending to, or coming off the wrong way by caps and underlines and quotations and also the italics, and I do the whole shebang-a-bang with that. We'll talk to him about that and more coming up here in just a few moments on the Inside program. I'm Jeff Cannon here with you on AM 1450 WDLB.
Venturing outside now can be a challenge to all of us, but when you're older, that short walk to the car or mailbox can be a real challenge. With First Call 24-hour monitoring system, venturing outside is a piece of cake. Your monitor will reach up to 80 feet away from the inside base. Should you fall, an alarm will be sent to the response center, alerting them you may need help. Call Clark Electric and Appliance today to get First Call installed now. 866-279-6544. 866-279-6544.
Hello? This is Wisconsin State Treasurer Kurt Schuler, and I'm calling to return money that belongs to you.
No way. For real?
For real. Wisconsin State Treasury gave back a record $33 million in unclaimed property last year, and I have over $400 million left to return.
I don't believe it.
You can believe it, and you can take it to the bank.
The Wisconsin State Treasury, keeping an eye on your money. To find your missing money, visit wismissingmoney.com.
Motorcyclists often seem rather intimidating. Rough and tumble, real bad mamma jammers. Little do folks know they can actually be quite sensible, especially if they insure their motorcycle with Geico along with their car. Geico's multi-policy discount could save them quite a bit of money. Did I just say bad mamma jammers? Do you ever say something and think, I wish I'd never said that? This is one of them times.
Call Geico or visit geico.com today to see how much our multi-policy discount could save you.
Rite Aid wants to be your new pharmacy. Transferring's easy. With your list of medications, call 1-800-RITE-AID, go online at riteaid.com, or visit any location, and we'll do the rest. Every prescription gets you closer to 20% off the whole store, fast, with a free Wellness Plus card. Rite Aid accepts most major plans, including those with Express Scripts coverage, so transfer today. Certain limitations apply. Prescriptions paid for in whole or in part by state or federal healthcare programs, such as Medicare or Medicaid, are not eligible for Wellness Plus points, nor are prescriptions filled in New York or New Jersey. See pharmacist for details.
All year long, you get in your car and you get in your car and you get in your car and now it's below zero. You get in your car and...
Oh, no.
Well, what did you expect? Now is the time to see O'Brien Automotive in Marshfield. Batteries, spark plugs, antifreeze, tires, all installed in a clean, professional atmosphere. They have a tow truck to come out and get your vehicle, too. At O'Brien Automotive, personalized service for you and your car. Located between Little Caesars and T-Bones on North Central Avenue in Marshfield. Oh, yeah. It's going to be below zero. It was this morning, wasn't it? Let me click on my National Weather Service website link here and find out that the official airport... Oh, yeah, we were down to -5 this morning for quite some time. We're looking at a high, according to the National Weather Service, a high of -3 for tomorrow. So, welcome to Wisconsin. Online with me is Kevin McCarney. His book is called The Secrets of Successful Communication. I should ask for our listeners, where are you?
I am in Burbank, California.
Okay, let's pour it on here. What's the temperature?
Well, it's 64 degrees today.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, and it got really cold last night. It got down to 42.
Woo, man, it's 64 inside here, and we're happy about that.
Yeah, it's. I was going to stay away from that, but it is an incredibly sunny day here right now.
Kevin is my guest this morning. We are talking about the secrets of successful communication, and I wanted to read part of this. Is one of the things that caught me as to why I'm having Kevin on today. Is part of the press release he gave me. One of the bullet points is that you are always creating moments. Every day brings dozens of opportunities to create moments that will make a difference in your life and the lives of others. The choice is yours as to what kind of moment you want to create. Always remember, though, someone is always watching. And the reason that paragraph caught me is I go to business after 5, or I'm communicating, or I'm walking around, and I'm not making a communication. And as I walk away and as I drive home, I think to myself, there was this opportunity, that opportunity, that opportunity to say something, to do something, to walk up to someone, to make a comment, to make a compliment, to open up a line of communication. And sometimes, I don't know if I am shy, it's hard to believe on the radio, because in this room all by myself, I just chat it up. But when I get in front of people or something, I always look at those opportunities as I've walked away and think to myself, there was that chance. That's what caught me, part of the reason why I'm intrigued by your book.
Oh, thank you. I think that's an important component, is to think about, before you go into these encounters, what you want out of the encounter. Because if we go in with a little bit of an idea of, I'm going to be seeing these 3 people, and it would be great if I could talk to him about this and her about that, And you don't have to squeeze it all into a quick conversation. And if you don't have the opportunity, if it doesn't come up, that's okay. But at least you'll know going in, hey, and you can make the conversation about the things that you want that encounter to have a legacy, that tomorrow when that person is thinking about you, it's like, yeah, I remember him. He's interested in selling me these items, and he was a really nice person. I remember him. That's the encounter you want. And I think you're so right when you talk about missed opportunities in encounters, because if we go into a conversation and there's three people there that we want to really talk, and we only talk about ourselves, and we never really give them a chance to talk, well, then we miss so many opportunities to connect with them.
But there has to be a certain, and we just talked about this before the break, a certain, I would call it sincerity. When you ask somebody something, maybe in your mind it is just a conversation starter. Gee, I'd like to talk to this person about something or something else or whatever, but ask them about their scarf that they have on, or gee, that's a pretty dress or a tie or whatever the situation may be. Okay, we've broken the ice. Now where do we go from there? Sometimes being a conversationalist is not just about, I feel like I'm being grilled sometimes. Oh, who are you? Where do you work? What do you do? Whoa, back off here. Why, are you the FBI? I mean, starting that conversation is not about 20 questions.
No, and you're right. And I think what the key word you just used, sincerity. The superficial stuff doesn't really work for anything. People read superficiality and they ignore it. So if you're not sincere when you're talking to people, that's the first thing that comes across. And one of the ways people begin to understand whether you're sincere or not is the tone of voice that you're using, because the tone is the message. And if you've got a salesmanship tone when you're talking to people, they're going to disconnect. They're not interested in being sold either an idea in a conversation or an item. But if you get to a conversational tone where you're speaking to them in a very sincere and honest tone about what the day is like or what their day is like, and listening to them, then you're much more likely to connect with them. You're much more likely to resonate with them than you are if you're trying to overdo it, as you so honestly put right there. I thought that was really good.
Well, let me go to the publicists for books often give talk show hosts like me some sample questions, and I try to shy away from them. I have the first 40 minutes, but I found one here that I thought probably was the best way I could put it myself, and it is, it seems like communication is an art form that has been transformed by texting and emailing. We talked about electronic communication before, and my lack of it or incivility or whatever the case I'm being perceived as most of the time is, I don't know how I'm coming off, but for some reason I don't get it. How can people communicate effectively with kids, coworkers, and such using this modern technology?
Well, it's a very artful arena, that's for sure. I love technology and I don't like technology at the same time. But I love technology for the ease of letting my kids know where I'm at, or let them telling me where they're at and how much time we have. But when it comes to communication, I look at digital technology as a great way to get information out, but not a great way to communicate, because it lacks what I just described as tone. Now, you can put tone in different emails. You can put, the caps, you can put the exclamation points, and you can do different things, but they can be misread, and it can be misunderstood because the other person really doesn't hear how you're saying it. And you may want to give it some emphasis, but with the bold, and saying, really take a look at this, and they may say, well, why is he so angry? Because he's bolding everything, and he's putting these things. And so people will misread your tone in any kind of a digital communication. Happens all the time in emails. Emails, you ever get an email from somebody and you go, what is their problem? Because the person is venting a little bit and they ramble on, and all of a sudden it's like you want to respond to their email because it feels like an attack, and that's the perfect time when we have a little section in the book where we tell people, okay, that's where you stop. You don't respond to the digital communication right away. We give time limits. I think on if you get a little brain email from somebody, I think we say take at least an hour. And I think a little brain text take at least 15 minutes before you respond, because if we jump into that quick response, because texting has made it so easy that the second we have the thought in our head, we can actually put it into print and send it to somebody. The problem is when we send it to somebody, as you've seen in the news, when you send a text to somebody, you're really sending it to the entire world. It's going to be on that person's computer, whether it's an email or a text on their phone. It's going to be on there forever. And so what you said isn't going to stay just in that moment. That's going to have a legacy. And it's like they can look up 3 months from now. Look, this is what this person wrote. So you don't want to use your emotional little brain by shooting out, retorts to people and putting it in print. It's obviously the political arena has found this, and even celebrities have found this to be extremely embarrassing. And sometimes they go, God, I don't know why I did that. I'm really sorry, and they apologize. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. But I really think that the digital stuff, to me, is great for information. Here's the address. Here's the phone number. Here's this. But when it comes to communication, I was having lunch with somebody a couple days ago, and she was extremely frustrated because she was trying to arrange a meeting with some friends who were in town. And they went back and forth with 10 different texts, and nobody was really communicating properly. And I looked at her, and she was getting frustrated. I said, why don't you just call them? And she was younger. She's 20. And a friend of my daughter's. And I said, well, just call them. And she says, I guess I'm going to have to. And it was one of those moments where you go, oh, okay, this is where you really have to start working on people and say, you know what, pick up the phone. That you're going to be so much better communicating on the telephone or in person than you are sometimes in text. Now, some people are great at writing, and they can write the most eloquent email and be completely understood. I'm not necessarily one of them.
Kevin McCarney, my guest, he has a book called The Secrets of Successful Communication, and he talked about big brain, little brain. If you're just tuning in right now, what that means is big brain is the real one, and little brain is the smart aleck that pops out sometimes that you respond before you really think it through, so to speak. Is that kind of synopsis there?
Well, absolutely. And if you're a parent or, if you've got employees, sometimes you got to realize that I look at kids are going to make 100 mistakes a year. And how we respond, and they're going to use their little brains because, quite honestly, their brains aren't completely done connecting yet. Where the big brain has that control mechanism built in, the little brain does not, and the kids haven't completely developed there. So when you're dealing with teenagers and stuff, and they're using the wrong tone of voice or they're saying the wrong thing, as difficult as it is, it's important not to take it personal, so you can respond from your big brain while they're using their little brain.
Unfortunately, in the emails, I'm the pea brain because I'm the guy who gets the responses back from the people who are going, what, as you described earlier, what is this guy, why is he, there's some sort of a, and I guess what I've learned from you in just a few moments is quit with all the chat. Just get to the point in an email, give the information, and quit adding all the emotion into an email, because it's not the right place for it. And maybe that's why I'm getting the bad responses that I'm getting from emails at times, is I'm infusing emotion into my writing.
Well, and we all do this. And everybody is I think listening can understand that we've all done this, and we all do this. I'm getting better at it, and that's the only thing I say is I even though I wrote a book on this stuff, I'm still getting better at this stuff. I haven't perfected it. It's something that I continue to study, and I continue to look at ways where I'm miscommunicating, where I could have communicated better. Because if I can communicate better, then I'll feel like I've accomplished something.
Kevin McCarney, my guest this morning, and we'll take a break here on AM 1450, WDLB's Inside program. If you're interested in this book, it's I am really looking forward to, thus, I have to confess, have gone only through the press releases thus far in preparation for the show. There's only so much time I have, but it is a soft cover book. It is, as I'm flipping through here, 185 pages long, and some of it is acknowledgments and appendix and about the author and things like that. It's an easy read, but I in this time of year, and listen to me stumble here, this time of the year, this is when I start to actually talk about things that are important to me. I start to stumble a little bit. I can go on a roll about some other things, but when it's something like this is almost like a, if you'll pardon the comparison, a Bible to me, because this is what I need. This is something that I can really use, and I see a lot of other people in society today as miscommunicating. I have that problem because I'm the class clown. I'm the smart aleck. Always have been. That's how I got in this business in the first place. I wasn't always outgoing. I wasn't always an extrovert. I still am not at certain situations. But I've always got that kind of a comedy writer brain where you're looking at it from a little different perspective, a little different angle. You're getting that humor into it, and that's how they teach you to write comedy. You take a situation and you say, mayonnaise popsicles. You take two things that don't fit and you put it together, and that's funny. But it's not funny when the other person isn't on the same page with you, and especially in an email or a text communication where they don't have the ability to see your eyes or your hand gestures or your posture, and it gets all balled up. We can talk more about that. We'll find out where you can get a copy of this book and find out how it can change your life as well here on AM 1450, WDLB's Insight, with me, Jeff Cannon, here on this Wednesday morning.
I won't go to the field without it again.
I spent thousands on extra seeding from overpopulating. It paid for itself in the first 300 feet.
The 2020 system from Precision Planting is your key to improve planting efficiency in the field. 2020 Seed Sense is your monitor that measures spacing, downforce, ground contact, and more. Combine it with 2020 Air Force to automate downforce control, and 2020 Row Flow to gain control over row clutches and population.
2020 Seed Sense. Easy to use. It caught several problems that a standard monitor wouldn't have caught.
As you plant, Seed Sense offers you live updates so you can make adjustments immediately. Facts and figures are also stored so you can improve year after year. Your Precision Planting dealer can help you put the 2020 system to work. They're trained to install your equipment and can offer in-field support too.
Improve yields year after year. Learn more about the 2020 system, Seed Sense, Air Force, and Row Flow at precisionplanting.com. It pays to plant with precision.
Your child's education and well-being are your top priorities, and you want only the best. Columbus Catholic Schools understands this, and your child's education and well-being are our top priorities as well. Columbus Catholic Schools has a long tradition of academic excellence. We provide every child with individual attention, a safe, nurturing environment, and a strong set of Christian values. It's no wonder students at Columbus Catholic score among the highest in the country on the ACT and Iowa test of basic skills. Don't you think it's time to discover the difference? Visit any Columbus Catholic school building on Monday, January 23rd from noon to 1 p.m. or 6 to 7 p.m. for a prospective family tour. Spend an hour. Make the choice to register your child at Columbus Catholic Schools. For more information, visit our website at columbuscatholicschools.org or call 387-2444.
Yeah, hey, what's the biggest thing that happens around these here parts? Deer hunting, right? Well, there's this story about a guy from the Coosa who takes his daughter's boyfriend up north, and they found out that he'd rather sit in the cabin and knit him a sweater because he got Bambi syndrome. Well, this story is called Guys and Does, and you can see and hear all about it this Saturday at the Lucille Tax Center in Spencer. Ladies, maybe you can get your husband to go to the theater if you buy him the tickets and tell him it's about deer hunting. Saturday night, 7:30 at the Lucille Tax Center in Spencer. Call the box office at 659-4499 or log on to LucilleTaxCenter.com for tickets. Yeah, hey, he says. The guy would rather knit a sweater and have Bambi syndrome. You have to be from around here to understand that lingo. On AM 1450, WDLB's Insight, I'll give a pair of tickets away here around 11:35. I'll give you another opportunity. We did that yesterday, and I've got a couple of pair of tickets left yet to give away to Guys and Does. It's coming up on the 21st. That's on Saturday night. This Saturday night. Wow. Time flies when you're not paying attention. On today's program, I'm talking with author Kevin McCarney. His book is called The Secrets of Successful Communication. His patented saying is big brain versus little brain communication here this morning. And I will conclude here with one of the last points that you make is that we grow up thinking our legacy is something we leave behind when we die. Why do you think it's something we need to be working on every day of our lives?
Well, thank you. A good friend of mine is a preacher, and when he read the book, he said, he says, I have been preaching about the afterlife. He says, and really, he says, what you talk about here is a little bit shorter. It's the after moment. It's what's happening tomorrow, and how much what we do today has an impact on people and ourselves tomorrow. The idea is that every moment we have, every encounter we have when we're talking to people, whether it's our children or employees or something, it resonates, and it will have an impact on us. It'll come back, and it either be to our benefit or it could be an obstacle. If we say something, if we use the wrong tone of voice, if we get angry and scream at somebody, and then we just kind of walk away, well, the next time we see that person, the first thing top of their mind, the legacy of that previous encounter is that, oh my gosh, this is a hothead. I don't know if I want to be close to this person. And the same thing happens at work. A lot of people are in jobs and they're going, I can't get any further ahead, and maybe they're the ones that are always a little bit negative in their comments and complaining and just they're not getting ahead in their business environment. A lot of times because they're not leaving good legacies from 1 week to the next. And if you want to grow in business, if you want to move up in business, one of the things you have to do is realize that everything you say in the business world is going to come back and help you or hurt you. And same thing as a parent, your kids will, believe me, we all know our kids have much better memories than we do. Everything we say will come back and it will be in front of us. I think that, so many times we think that, you're building, you don't have to worry about your legacy until somebody's reading your eulogy. Well, the legacy really is your reputation, and it's your current reputation. But I don't like to use the word reputation because it sounds so professional when we're really talking about individuals and ourselves and where we're going. The nice thing is, we all make mistakes. We're all going to use our little brains once in a while. And one of the things that we highlight in the book is that even if we use our little brain, even if we overreacted to something, and we all do, we're human, that's part of our condition, is there's no expiration date on an apology. If we've overreacted to something, if we said something wrong, we can go back and apologize, no matter how long it's been. There was a wonderful story about a young girl who was bullied quite a bit when she was in middle school, who, kind of went very introverted, finally got a Facebook page. And I'm not a real big fan of Facebook, but it's a reality and you have to deal with it. But she got a Facebook page, and 20 years later, people who had bullied her found her on Facebook and were apologizing to her. They realized what they'd done. They realized what they said, and they came back and they apologized to her. And she cried. She couldn't believe that this little stigma that she was living with, that it had been erased because these people actually came back and they stood up and they apologized for acting the way they did because they were ignorant, they were young, and they were using their little brains. And I think that one of the beautiful things about the condition, this human condition, is, yeah, we're going to make mistakes. It's good if we don't make the mistakes, but if we do, okay, we've got an out. We've got an apology. Heck, there's industries that help us apologize. There's greeting cards. I think Hallmark probably has an entire wing that's dedicated to how to write an apology. And I think that, if you did something a little bit more egregious, you're going to find yourself buying flowers. And, if you're married or something and you said something to embarrass your wife in front of some family members or something accidentally, not on purpose, but kind of an oops comment, you're going to maybe be at the jewelry store looking at earrings.
Kevin McCarney, my guest here. We're wrapping it up. It's called The Secrets of Successful Communication. If you have a resolution in 2012, make it to be a better person. Would this be in the self-help section? Where could we get a copy of this?
It's both in self-help and in business. It's at Barnes & Noble. It's on Amazon. You can go to the website, our website, and you can buy it through Amazon there. It's on Nook and Kindle and all the other arenas.
The name to remember, you can log on to bigbrain.com. That may be easy to remember, bigbrain.com. I like to think of myself that way, but unfortunately more like P-brain. I'm sorry in the way that I communicate with people sometimes. I think as you were talking in the last few moments here, I thought, well, maybe that's why people I see that look in their eye, oh, here comes Schmuck again, because I left that legacy that maybe I said something that wasn't funny, and I tried to be, and I don't know. I don't know why people react to me the way they do, but it's fascinating, and why people react to each other the way they do, and this is what this book is partially about. The Secrets of Successful Communication, Kevin T. McCarney. Look for it. BigBrain.com might be a website you can log on and find out more about. Thank you for taking the time to visit with me this morning. It's a situation or a condition or whatever you want to call it that's near and dear to my heart here, communication.
Jeff, thanks for the conversation. I really enjoyed it.
All right. We wish you luck.
Thank you, sir.
From California, that's Kevin McCarney here, our guest this morning on today's Inside program on AM 1450 WDLB.